Hello, this is Ali, one half of YASP, the intelligent half, with all the understandings of how to procure the usage of this facsimile of life, known as a thesaurus, and the one with the outmost prevalent amount of wavering brain organism, too high for any mortal to handle. Anyways, I'm tired of using the synonyms button on Microsoft Word, so welcome to YARR. To say that there is a surplus of superhero shows nowadays would definitely be considered a huge understatement. It seems that in every channel, streaming service, YouTube series, or even continuous streams, you can find a superhero show finding its way into it. There are so many shows right now that I didn't even heard of Jupiter's Legacy until I saw an interview that Conan did with Timothy Oliphant where he mentions Josh Duhamel's show on Netflix, and then since it was in the recommended section I watched Josh Duhamel's interview on Seth Meyers' show. So yeah, the only reason I know about this show, which I'm devoting a full episode of YARR to, is the fact that Timothy Oliphant decided to talk about how he looks like Josh Duhamel on this particular interview. So with the oversaturation of this genre, subgenre, thematic correlation, I'm going to call it genre. So with the oversaturation of this genre, the first question that comes to my mind before starting any superhero show is that, is it worth to put my time on it? Now, I don't want to come off as a snobby asshole. My time is valuable, but I also spent it watching The Big Bang Theory and The Mentalist. And I'm 100% serious there. I did watch those shows. I feel bad about myself. So the reason I have that question in my mind isn't out of a need to devote my time to higher arts, quote unquote. It's just after the 5th or 6th superhero show, I tend to get really bored of the recurring tropes and story bits. Now I have to be honest, as of this moment I haven't read the comics. I have gotten them and I know Mark Millar because of one of my favorite comic books which has his name on it, Old Man Logan. So I'm willing to give the comic its own separate chance, but this is a YARR on the show, not on the comic. I just wanted to mention that I haven't read the comics, so if there is like a super specific reference to a comic thing, I wouldn't get it. Not that having a comic reference can make a bad project good. Anyways, I've been talking for so long without talking about Jupiter's Legacy, and I think that's the best way of discussing this show. Because in the 8 episodes of the first season, nothing happens. Okay, that's a bit unfair, but literally, I think they could have trimmed the whole first season into 3 or 4 episodes and given us the exact same amount of information. It's slow, repetitive, and honestly a little bit boring at times. If it wasn't for Ben Daniels, who we all know as the best Pontius Pilate, second best, and for the action scenes, Jupiter's Legacy would be almost unwatchable. It wants to say something. It doesn't hide it, it doesn't manage to hide how important it wants to feel, but the sad truth is, it's not as important as it is want to be seen. In short, and this might be a little spoilery, you can summarize the whole season in 3 sentences. First is, Walt feels inadequate. Okay, a bit of a side note. Each episode of the season is separated into flashback and present day. The flashbacks are mainly to show how our heroes first got their powers, which are your usual trope-fueled powers like Superman-esque or Professor X-esque. Try saying that 5 times in a row. So with that knowledge, most of the flashbacks can be easily boiled down to the phrase of Walt feels inadequate. It's important. But when you're seeing scene after scene of nothing going forward and a character going in circles, you realize how much you just want them to get to the point and get it over with. The second sentence is, Sheldon's family life is spiraling out of control. Now this one could be interesting, and for the most part it is. It's somewhat unique, or at least intriguing, to see the family life of what a superhero, in this case our Superman stand-in, is going through, and how being a goody two-shoes superpowered being can bring conflict between a father and his offsprings. It's a good story beat, but it goes nowhere. Mainly because, much like the flashback, it goes around in circles and ends up just being boiled down with Sheldon's family life is spiraling out of control. The show never gives this story bit enough of an attention, so it's just general issues with no resolves. The third sentence is best shown through a Bob Dylan lyric, "Things have changed." How did you like my Bob Dylan impression? I spent a total of 3 minutes working on it. The funny thing, I did it while I was seeing Jupiter's Legacy, because by the 10th time someone says things are not what they used to be, I was completely zoned out. Listen, I'm not trying to be mean. I think this is and could be a very, very interesting idea, but instead of telling us, why don't you show us? You already have the narrative device of the flashbacks. Use them for something other than going around in circles. People keep talking about how things have changed, but we never see it. Apparently, supervillains have become more violent. Well, show us. Show us the difference between the doctor that Sheldon trusts and the guy that killed someone else. Because when you keep telling us and not showing us, it doesn't leave any impact. Now, the execution of the show isn't bad, and I don't think the cast did a bad job. I mentioned Ben Daniels already, but the rest of the cast is doing a good job also. I did believe I was looking at superheroes and villains and characters instead of just actors wearing costumes. But the story problems, coupled with a ton of poor choices in execution, makes the show feel a whole lot like a diet version of The Boys or Watchmen. And what the fuck is up with that beard? Really? It looks like an amateur theater production makeup job. And even then I'd say they have the capacity to ask their actors to grow a beard for their role. In the show's defense, the older beard on both Duhamel and Daniels is a good job, I think. But this is just an example of what this show made me feel like. I felt like Jupiter's Legacy wants to be a serious show, but ends up being something so light and airy and poorly executed that by the end of it, I just appreciated other better superhero shows even more for actually managing to juggle all of the political messages, emotional bits, and beards much more proficiently than this show. This is fairly short, and I could do a full 40-minute video on how this show and what does it say about the state of TV at its supposed new golden age, as well as how it outlines the lot of problems with modern TV shows made for streaming, but that would require a lot more resources and a lot more time, and YARR, in its essence, is supposed to be a shorter video format. I can force Ami Reza to sit down and watch the show, and then we can do a full YASP on it, but I leave that decision to you. Tell us if you would like to see that or not. For now though, I can't really in full conscience recommend this show. Maybe if you're too bored, or are you just a big fan of Ben Daniels, but even then there are better things to watch. Did you know Ben Daniels was in Doom? And his co-star is Carl Urban, who is in The Boys. Isn't that just fun to know? Well, it's much more fun than the show if you ask me. At least in this level, Jupiter's Legacy got to have a brush with a better show. I don't want to come off as The Boys fanboy, but it's so much better than Jupiter's Legacy in what it does. As of now, the second season hasn't officially been confirmed, and honestly I don't know if this show is something I want to invest more time in. I will watch it if the second season comes out, but I also watched the newest season of Paradise PD, so you can know the depth of my issues and my mental disorders. If there is ever a second season to Jupiter's Legacy, there will be a second episode of YARR for Jupiter's Legacy. Until then, keep calm and carry on, and don't forget to check out Doom. It's a poorly made movie, but kind of funny in how poorly made it is.